All right, my friend, welcome to the next episode of the Fit at Home podcast, where when it comes to getting the best shape of your life, there's no place like home. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly from the RedDeltaProject.com. With me, with my co-host here, Al Painter, and we've got some practical tips, takeaways, and applications for you for the next 7 days to make your home fitness journey all the more productive over the next week. So, Al, welcome, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you now, Matt Schifferly? Good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, doing all right, doing okay. Wrapping my head around some new stuff. I've been playing around with this ISO trainer, this T2 ISO trainer that it's sometimes when you get these home pieces of equipment, it's just so out of left field. And there's this period of kind of like, what am I working with here? What am I trying to
Mhm.
use this thing for? Because one thing I've noticed when it comes to the home fitness industry, which is where I got my start in fitness, there's always so much more innovation and creativity with home fitness products. When you get into the commercial stuff, it's dull and it's boring, and it's usually the same old, same old. Like we go to trade shows and they'd say, "Oh, this is our commercial leg press." It's like it's just like any other leg press. No, we put different grips on the handles or something. Like it's the same old thing. But you go into the home fitness market, and there's always these things that are like, wow, this is nothing like I've seen before. Granted, a lot of it's garbage, which doesn't go anywhere, but every once in a while you find those gems that come up out of nowhere. So I always like that creativity. Do you have a lot of like home stuff, like gadgets and stuff you've played with in the past, Al?
Oh, do I have? Yeah. Do I breathe? If you poke me, do I not bleed? Yo,
Yeah.
God, yeah. I think probably quite possibly the best example of that. And it would be very difficult to find a successor to this, just simply for the fact that I had used the category of equipment, just not in this way. And that's the original monkey bars.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yep.
that spectral line, oh man, using those things for pressing and dips in particular was like riding a jackhammer with an octopus on meth during a 7.3 earthquake. You
Oh,
know,
I've done
until
that
you
before. Yeah. I know what you mean.
until you get things under control. Because that little spectral line, I mean, heck, it's seemingly like this wire here of the headbuds,
Yep.
and this the amount of shoulder stability and everything else you needed for those things. Oh, top shelf.
Yeah, they were always a fun thing to play around with. And that Spectra line is insane. I actually ordered some replacement Spectra line years ago, and I had to read the website description like 5 times. I was like, really? This thread has a breaking strength of like 1,200 pounds? Are you kidding me? And they're like, no, really, it's rated for that. It's good for it. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
wow, okay, interesting. But yeah, when it comes to just playing around with stuff like that, it's so much more fun. It's playful. That's what I love about it. It's
Yes.
not just stuffy business as usual things. It's experimentative and creative, and I always really appreciate that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, let's jump right into today's main segments here. So, starting off, of course, with our fitness workout tips of the week to improve your workouts for the next week. Al, what is your tip of the week for our dear listeners?
Dear listener, my tip of the week is going to be to tell you to start getting better at stopping. And what I mean by that is listen to your body, right? I've got this thing on my wrist that tells me, hey, you're tired because, for the first 48 years of my life before I had it, I didn't know when I was tired and I needed this to tell me, right? But the point being is even if you're using HRV, which I have before, the heart rate variability measurements, I had measurements, it's increments of 0 to 100. And the closer you are to 100, the better off you are for the folks at home who haven't heard it. Right? It takes you through red and then I believe yellow and then green in terms of your readiness to work out. Even though I would have a green score, I would still be run down and I wouldn't listen and I would go plow through a workout and inevitably I'd run myself down and my body would volunteer me to rest either through pain or getting sick. So the point being is if you don't feel a workout and you just mentally, you can't get into it and it's a grind and it's brutal to even just get that first rep done, pack it in. Especially if you can't get the muscles to fire the way that they should, If you are not using your muscles in the way that they're supposed to move your bones, all you're going to do is get better at moving worse. If you start using bad repetitions to do your movements, just stop. Just stop. I mean, how many times, Matt, have you done this either skiing or riding a bike where it's just like, all right, one more run, one more run. Why? What could go wrong, right? But you're just so cooked, and eventually down you go. Then you're not doing anything for a bit, right? That's happened to me on a mountain bike several times. So listen to the body. If it's telling you that it just can't give you the go giddy up for a workout, stop, go for a walk, stretch. Just do something. You can still be active, just dial it back exponentially, and probably a walk will be the best thing. And if you're lucky, like we are here, you got a neighborhood feline that comes up and rubs against you and leaves half of its fur on your leg.
Man, that's the kind of advice I needed years ago, and I should have heeded myself, because it's so hard to slow down and tell ourselves, take a break. But it's something I always encourage my clients. I tell them all the time. I was like, I fully encourage you skipping workouts, 100%, because it took forever for me to learn this, but I would have clients sometimes who would be like, I don't feel like working out today. I'm tired. I didn't get any sleep. And I'd be like, no, we have to work out. You have to get this done today. You got to stay on track, kind of thing. But over the past, I would say 2 years now, when people say, I don't really feel like it, I'm like, do you think you would have a better workout if you tried this tomorrow? They're like, yeah, I could get a good night's sleep. I'll have a good dinner and stuff. And inevitably, they would come back the next day like, dude, I got that workout. I crushed it. Oh my gosh, I PR'd several things. What do you think the chances are would have been if you got that type of workout the day before? Oh, practically zero. It's like, well, then yes, you were better off putting it off. You don't get points in your workout because you force yourself to do hard things. You get a good workout because you do something well and better. And if you can do that after a little bit of a break, or you scale back a little bit, then you're only going to be better off. You're not going backwards. You're not being lazy or a whimper, any of that nonsense, negative self-talk. It's only going to be in your benefit as long as you do get to it. There's a big difference between I'm going to put it off for tomorrow because I'm going to do it better tomorrow, and I don't feel like doing it, I'll just do it later, and you never get to it. There's a world of difference between those two. I think, oh my gosh, we need to heed that advice so much.
Well, think about it too. The last 365 plus days across this planet have been interesting, shall we say, right? Yeah. There's been additional things to think about and juggle your emotional energy with and allocate your energy resources to, particularly what the situation is at home. If you got kiddos there, you're working from home now, and anything else that just makes you a little squirrely, it's going to be harder sometimes to get the engine kickstarted. So go with the body and what it gives you. Stop trying to push the water back up into the clouds and just go with it and live to work out another day.
Dear listener, I think that is the best advice you're going to hear on a podcast in the next year and a half. Like, you may be just scrolling through and paying attention to this. Seriously, please listen to this advice right here, because it will save you so much trouble, and it will increase the quality of the workouts you do by so much. Just that right there. Great, fantastic tip, Al. And my tip is kind of along those same lines, but if there's one thing I've learned that can dramatically improve your health and well-being and posture and performance and workout and everything, is including some degree of hip-focused work in your workouts. The reason is simple, is because you're only as strong as your legs. Fundamentally, everything you do with your body ultimately kind of comes from the ground up. So you've got to have strong legs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, provided you don't have injuries or something that gets you off your legs. You have to have strong legs, but your legs are only as strong as your hips. And unfortunately, most individuals, due to the fact that we sit so much, have chronically weak, sleepy, and immobile hips. And if your hips are shot, there's no way in hell your legs stand much of a chance of getting anywhere even close to your full potential. And if your legs aren't even close to their full potential, you're not going to be at your full potential. And this is something I've definitely experienced a lot more in the past couple of years myself. I've been doing some dedicated hip work. Night and day difference in everything I do. Because even in stuff you're doing your upper body, like if you're standing and pushing a dumbbell overhead, you need strong, stable hips for that. If you have even a little less stability in your hips, your shoulders are not going to be able to develop as strong as they can because you just don't have that foundation of support. So hip work, folks, and I'm not talking about the giant thigh master machines and stuff that you see at the gyms and stuff. They're not terrible, but they're really honestly not that good for you. Seriously, if you gave those up, you wouldn't miss them. You would almost have no impact whatsoever. I'm talking about standing hip work, the stuff where you've got to stabilize and mobilize your hips at the same time. So one of the most basic exercises you can do is literally stand on one leg and draw circles with your knee in front of you, big circles, because the hip that you're standing on needs to be rock solid in order to stabilize. And then the hip that you're circling with needs to mobilize and be strong in all positions. Just that right there. Do that every single day. It'll make a world of difference. I also have a number of hip isometric exercises that I mentioned on the RDP YouTube channel in my book, Overcoming Isometrics. There's a big world of it out there, is basically what I'm saying. There's a ton of different things you could do without any equipment. It takes you 10 seconds, literally. It's nothing, but it makes such a big difference. Focus on strengthening up your hips. Makes a world of difference.
Oh, God, yes. We are an integrated unit from feet to fingers, right? Our body works in concert. So it's not like, can you isolate a movement? Yeah, you can do preacher curls and that kind of thing. But somewhere along the line, something else is still working. I mean, think about brushing your teeth from the opposite. So if I'm using my left hand, opposite corner of my abdomen down right is going up into here so I can do this motion to brush my teeth. So yeah, for sure. You work the hips, it just makes everything better, especially if you like to hike or bike or run. Yeah, work the hips all the time.
Yeah, I used to have a chiropractor friend, and I'd hang out at the chiropractor or physical therapy facility sometimes when I'd have friends there or something. And I'd ask her, I'm like, do you ever get tired of telling people they need stronger hips? Because it seemed like everything that went wrong with whoever it was like, yeah, well, you need X, Y, and Z, and you got to strengthen your hips. It was like every single person was like, I know, it's the plague of modern society is weak, poorly conditioned hips. Most people just don't have them. But because that's the case, it can make the biggest impact fairly quickly too. So
yeah. As far as I'm concerned, strong glutes can cure a hangnail, a bad hair day, and everything in between.
Amen. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to our dietary tips then. This is things that you can do to improve your diet. And again, go back on all of the older podcasts here, folks, because we give one tip a week here. And each of these may be like, it's not that big deal. It's just one tip. Yeah, but they add up. This is podcast number 8 now. We've been doing this for 2 months. So if you implemented each of these dietary tips over the 2 months, at this point, your diet should be 180 degrees from where you started if you've implemented even half of these tips. So these add up big time towards results. Think of where you could be a year from now if you've made all this progress in only 2 months. Al, what's your tip of the day here?
Well, the tip of the day is one, whenever you have two fitness professionals talking on a podcast, it means they're always right.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
dear listener,
obviously, for sure.
right? That's why
Obviously.
I show up, because I get to be right all the time, right? We're like the ultimate yes man for the other person. It's perfect. I love it. Yeah. Mutual admiration society. My tip for you people to help you with your diets this week, nutrition habits. Find a vegetable you may not have eaten before and eat it. That's it. Steam it, eat it raw, dip it in hummus, I like put actually salsa, get a good fresh salsa, right? And dip your veggies in there. So something you haven't eaten, dice it up, put it on a salad if the taste isn't to your liking. But if you dice it up, put it into a salad, it kind of gets all mixed together. There you go.
I love it.
So go and ideally, the more colorful, the better. And if you're a colorful vegetable person, go dark green. If you're a dark green person, go to the more colorful perspective of the vegetable spectrum.
I like that a lot. And one thing, like, it's so a lot of people when it comes to vegetables, they're like, I don't know how to prepare this stuff. I don't know how to pick one vegetable or one thing and then Google recipes that use whatever. and you'll get some ideas there. Or if you take my approach where I just combine a bunch of stuff together and throw it all together. And you add one thing in there, like, oh, I make a salad every day. So you could say, I always make my salads with the same ingredients, the same way, same every time. It's like one new thing. Okay. And it doesn't have to be a quote vegetable like carrots and tomatoes and stuff like that. This also includes things like herbs, includes like basil, celery. Like go to the produce section and start exploring what's new, what's fresh, and just pick one thing up. And I think that's great because again, you're getting more variety and you're expanding your palette of getting outside of the typical bell pepper tomatoes on a pizza kind of idea. Onions and peppers with your sausage links or whatever. So fantastic. And my tip is along the lines of something that is more of an awareness thing. And this was based on our conversation last week. We were talking about ice cream. And of course, being from Vermont, I have a strong affinity for the Ben and Jerry's, of course. And people don't know, but I actually do have a very strong connection with Ben and Jerry's because it's almost kind of a family business in many ways. My sister is very high up in the management roles of Ben and Jerry's. She started off as literally parking cars in the factory tour parking lot and worked her way up. And basically, anytime you go to a store and there's some new exclusive flavor, she's had a hand in that. If you go into
not literally though.
Not literally, no. But actually, one thing she did create was if you go to the store and you go into the freezer section, they've got the Ben and Jerry's cookie dough bites. So it's in a bag. It's the cookie dough chunks that you have in the ice cream, but it's just the chunks and it's brownie chunks and it's peanut butter cookie dough chunks. That's her invention. Like she created that kind of thing. So anyway, I digress because I want to give you some perspective on Ben and Jerry's isn't exactly a patriotic thing for me. It's literally in my blood kind of stuff. But anyway, years ago, I was talking with my sister and we were talking about the new like Halo Top kind of ice creams that are out there and stuff. And I kind of was like, to be perfectly honest with you, I feel like I'm still better off eating regular Ben and Jerry's than the Halo Top stuff. And she was like, well, how would that be and stuff? It's like, it's not what you eat, it's how you're eating it or why you're eating it. And I have this history, like way back in the day. Do you remember like the Snackwell's cookies and stuff that came out?
The healthy
Exactly.
cookies?
Exactly. Right. Like before I was into fitness, that was my MO. Like anything that was low fat or low carb, or all it had to do was have that label on it. It could be black tar heroin. And if it's low fat, I'd be like, great, that means it's healthy, kind of stuff. Like that was the only thing that I was judging the healthiness of a food on. Well, fast forward now, my approach to eating is way different. Like I don't look at something and be like, oh, it's vegan, that means it's healthy. Oh, it's paleo, that means it's healthy. I'm not going to just judge things on that. So the point I'm making is back then, like I used to do this self-delusional thing of, hey, this ice cream is low or fat or whatever. That means it's healthy. I'm going to eat the entire thing. And it's that whole, the Healthy Choice was another brand name. And I remember one time,
yeah.
How much Healthy Choice ice cream can I eat before it stops being a healthy choice? Kind of thing. Because a lot of what makes something healthy or unhealthy is just how much of it you're eating. And that's the bottom line, is I find so much of the marketing around so-called health foods is it's healthy, therefore you can eat a crap ton of it. Eat it guilt-free, eat it without any abandon. Like even the Halo Top branding is go ahead and eat the entire pint. And I just look at that and like, how good for you could it be, or how satisfying could it be if you need to eat the whole pint? Versus something that's richer and more satisfying, like Ben and Jerry's, where I'll eat like several spoonfuls and be like, okay, I'm good, I'm done. Like it's very rich and stuff like that, because my whole approach to diet is the healthiness of something isn't what it is, it's how well does it satisfy you? How well does it feed your appetites? And when we look at healthy stuff, we oftentimes come across much less satisfying products. So going with the old idea of like, okay, it's a healthy food. It's like, yeah, but don't base it on the healthiness just because it says it's something on the label. Base it on the healthiness based off of how much you actually enjoy it, how much of it you really need to be satisfied, and whether it's really what you honestly want to be eating. Because if you're plowing through pint after pint of Halo Top or going through an entire box of Snackwell's cookies, and you're telling yourself, oh, this tastes just like the other stuff, you're fooling yourself. I used to do that all the time. Oh, this pizza is great and it's low fat. I don't miss the regular pizza at all. I'm like, Matt, you're delusional. The crust is like cardboard. The cheese is minuscule and it tastes like bubble gum that's already been chewed. And that one little sliver of pepperoni, it looks more like a dog treat than anything else. If you think that can match a homemade pizza that you used to eat, you're crazy. And so don't compromise on what you really want just for the sake of something that's like, it's healthy. It says it's healthy. Get what you want. If you want Ben and Jerry's, have Ben and Jerry's, eat it in a healthy way. Don't feel like you've got to compromise your choices just for quote, what is healthy. Because we've been through this merry-go-round a million times before. Every time we're like, this is the healthiest thing you can eat. Every time we look back and we're like, oh, actually, it wasn't that healthy, or it wasn't that good for you and stuff. Every single time versus butter, sugar, salt, eggs. The basic staples always seem to be the best way to go as far as satisfying what we really need. So anyway, I got a little preachy there, but that's the perspective I have is go for quality, not quantity. If you need a lot of quantity, it can't possibly be that good.
I've never heard anybody refer to black tar heroin as a flavor of ice cream. It's just awesome. I guess if you had enough of it, it wouldn't really matter what the ice cream tastes like because you wouldn't know anyway.
Yeah. What flavor is that? Does not matter.
I don't know, dude. Give me another spoonful.
It comes with a syringe. You just inject it straight in. You bypass the digestive system.
Oh, I love doing this show. I gotta be honest. I love about the tears out of my eyes and laughing. Hold on a second.
All right. So there's a dietary segment, dear
look at
listener.
the ingredients too, right? All these healthy things. I mean, how healthy are the ingredients in this healthy thing? Right?
Well, that's why, like, personally, I don't know why the conspiracy theorists out there haven't connected the dots between diet food and food conglomerates. Like, they create diets. Like, I can imagine this boardroom where people are like, we need to sell food and we need to make it more expensive. I got an idea. What is it, Johnson? Oh, we're going to create a diet that tells people not to eat as much. What? That's exactly the opposite. No, hear me out, boss. See, we're going to create a diet. We're going to give it a name and a label. And then we're going to restrict all the foods that people want to eat. And then once they've built up this appetite and they've been restricting themselves, then we're going to create all sorts of junk food that gets around that loophole we created. So we're going to say it's paleo or vegan or low fat or low carb or whatever, because we created this label. So now we can sell more junk food and we've convinced people that it's healthy. So they're going to eat more of it. We'll charge 20% more. Plus we've been telling them to restrict it. So they're going to want to eat a lot more. And that's how we're going to make a ton of money by creating diets. I mean, I'm totally making that up, but I swear I could create that conspiracy and it would be unfortunate by the end of it.
I think I saw that episode of Mad Men.
Let's create a diet to convince people that our junk food's going to be healthy.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely. Anyway, let's move on. We're having too much fun with that, so let's bring this down a notch and be miserable. Segment number 4, this is our resource category. So this is something that we recommend you check out, something that can improve your general health and fitness, something that is a resource you can use. Al, what do you got for us this week?
My resource this week is along the lines of your additional hip work resource or fitness tip. And it is Stick Mobility, at Stick Mobility on Instagram and YouTube, I believe. Essentially, Stick Mobility is if there is a range of motion that a muscle will move a bone through, Stick Mobility allows you to isometrically train that movement or a segment of movement to build a lot more stability around your joints. Plus, you can drive your heart rate through the roof doing high tension isometrics. I know because I saw 171 on my wrist doing a stick mobility workout one time. And it is amazing. It is amazing because instead of like with an exercise band where you have to provide resistance against that force, you are providing the force, which then allows your nervous system to release more range of motion because you then supported that range of motion with additional strength. So stick mobility is great. Obviously, the mobility component of stick mobility is great, especially for shoulders, hips, T-spine, basically feet to fingers. Stick mobility will help you quite a bit. It's a great primer to use before a movement. For instance, I will do some rotational things to open up opposite shoulders, and then I'll chop, or just do my pulling motions. I'll open up the chest and the shoulders first, and then I'll pull. And the isometrics that you can do for the lower body with the stick mobility, if you want to put a 4-alarm fire in your glutes, grab a stick, push it into something, and enjoy your life being incredibly difficult.
I like that approach so much better because as a guy who's chronically tight and stiff as hell, plus as a lifelong Taekwondoist where we're supposed to be mobile as Gumby, I can tell you, I've done so much passive stretching in my life, and I honestly can say that it's never done me one lick of good beyond just general warming up for a class. I mean, stretching for decades, and I never got any more flexible. But the approach of mobility of get some of that nervous system activity, get some strength in there. Muscle tension does not inhibit flexibility, it supports it. So if you're doing any sort of mobility without any sort of contractile force in your muscles, you're missing out big time. And the stick mobility drills are probably the easiest and safest way to do that I've ever come across. So I can't recommend it highly enough as well, because if you're just trying to passively stretch, it's slow going at best compared to this sort of stuff. It really is a game changer.
Yeah, well, think about it. A muscle tightens up for a reason, right? Your nervous system has clamped down the brakes on a muscle moving the joint through a range of motion because it's deemed it dangerous to the system. I mean, how many folks do you know or that you've come across, maybe you might know personally, raise his hand, that just stretch the bejesus out of the hip flexors after a bike ride, does nothing. Then I do some hip work and I get those glutes to activate, and guess what happens? The hip flexor goes
just open
and it releases because I put isometric tension into a muscle that's opposite the hip flexor that got tight, and it released. Did I go through a stretching program of months and months and months and everything else? No. Plus, if you crank down on a tight muscle, you already in a lengthened state of tension. If you have tight hamstrings, you stretch your hammies. What are you doing? You're just putting more tension into a muscle that's already tense in an area it should not have tension in it.
Yep.
So, yeah, activate to mobilize.
Totally. That was why, like, every year for all through my martial arts career when I was really serious, my New Year's resolution was I'm finally going to get flexible this year. I'm finally going to be able to touch my toes. And I would make really aggressive stretching my MO for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And by the end of the month, I was always so much tighter than when I had started, because I'm trying to make that muscle that's already freaking out and tightening up freak out even more. So it would get even tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'd be like, oh, I'm failing at my New Year's resolution like everyone else. It's like, yeah, because you're trying to force your body to be flexible, and it doesn't want to be because it's a scared little puppy who's just getting tighter and tighter, versus when I started to actually get stronger and build that balance in my body, suddenly everything's like, we'll loosen right up because we can handle this.
Yep.
Fantastic. Anyway, my resource of the week here is more about what's good in the kitchen. And what's good in the kitchen is I want you to go through the kitchen this week and get rid of any sort of appliances that you don't really use that much, and make readily available the ones that you do. Because one of the keys to a good healthy diet is being able to make your own food and snacks and preps and everything like that. And just like in the gym, how you have those staple pieces of equipment that just always work for you and use them all the time. You want to do the same thing with your cooking equipment. So maybe it's a cast iron skillet, or maybe it's a George Foreman grill, or whatever the case may be. Some people it's a blender or a NutriBullet, whatever it is. Get that stuff out, keep it ready and to rock and roll, because everybody's got those few pieces of equipment that they just use for everything, and they use it almost every single day to prepare their own food. You want to make sure that you've got that stuff front and center and not taking up space in a cupboard somewhere, because it doesn't need any good in a cupboard. Put it on your counter, keep food that can be used with it ready to go in your fridge at a moment's notice. It's going to make it so much easier to make your own snacks and dishes, whatever it may be. And you'll eat much better because you're preparing your own food, and your diet will be so much better as a consequence. So ready to use, easy pieces of equipment in your kitchen, so that food prep is all that much easier. There you go.
Jill's dad gave us some scan pans for Christmas. And oh man, I tell you, you can cook black tar heel in those things. But you can cook on those things, and it'll, like, usually a pan gets caked on with all the whatever you cooked, and you dislocate a shoulder trying to scrape it off. With this thing, I mean, you can almost just get a little tissue paper and comes right off. Oh man, I'm telling you, I use those things to cook everything because they're so easy to clean, which then makes me more apt to make my own food and be in control of what goes into my body. Yeah, definitely.
Hit the easy button, people. We want to make this stuff easy. The less effort you have to put into doing the things that are necessary, the greater your chances of success. We want to make things easier. We want to make things efficient for your equipment, for your training. Easy is the way to go. You don't get extra points for needlessly piling on more effort and obstacles that you got to jump through in order to get done what needs to be done. And that's what this whole podcast is about. And if you're really enjoying this podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you could just take a couple minutes, leave a review, let other people know, share it and stuff. If you're getting any value from it, just that simple act of leaving a review on the podcast directory of whatever you're using right now, or here on YouTube or whatever, that just helps the world be a better place. It helps get you a lot of good karma and stuff. We could all use a lot more of that these days as well. So thank you very much for listening. Please leave that review. Al, any parting words of wisdom for the week?
Matt and I are always right.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And we're the only podcast that's right, too. We're the only fitness podcast that's right. And anybody who disagrees with us is wrong. It's obvious. It's on the internet. If it's not on
it's got to be true. My father used to tell me, I might not always be right, but I'm damn sure never wrong. And it took me so long to figure that one out, right? I was like, wait, you're not right, but you're never wrong? How's that work? But go enjoy your week, go relax, go outside and play. We flew kites yesterday and it was a blast. There is something that is watching fish like to flying a kite that is just so, Go fly a kite. Why not?
Go fly a kite. Go walk off a pier.
But make sure if you're with your kids, you cut the tail off, because when you have the earbuds, right? And you have this nice straight line and then the connection before wireless. And then you put them in your pocket and you pull out this jumbled mess of just hell to try to untangle. Cut the tail off on the kite for the kids, or else you're going to spend more time untangling the kite than you will seeing it up in the sky. Just trust me, people.
Yep. Get outside, have some fun, enjoy your week, everybody. And thank you so much for listening. And until then, as a reminder, stay strong, lead by example.